think you're right, actually, and that's what in my discussion in the morning too, basically I touched upon the metro project and where it is. And I think that if you look at what Delhi is going through with the congestion and the pollution, and with the Supreme Court now intervening in terms of stopping diesel cars, blah, blah, etc. Before we reach those stage, I think what is required is a very strong, good public transport. If you have a strong public transport system, you would not have that kind of pollution, and as the cities are growing. So Hyderabad in the past had built good amount of infrastructure. We have the expressway to the airport per se, which is really good, the outer ring road, etc. So there has been in the past development there. I am sure, and that was the message from the chamber too, that the focus on creating a good infrastructure and expanding the city into a larger framework rather than concentrating in the center. And that expansion can only happen if you create good infrastructure all around and allow movement to happen, which happens in many large cities across the world. And that's how the potential of Hyderabad and this state can be enhanced much more. Because we are in the thick of it, and we virtually are in the midst of that situation, what you just described, and we have been working with the government. I must say that in the last few months, there has been interest because of these issues which are getting resolved on the projects and all. So projects which are getting completed, there is now a certain amount of interest happening by investors. One of the key things which is we are waiting for now is the National Infrastructure Fund, which the Government of India created in the last budget for 20,000 crores as an initial corpus. They intend to put this money into play, primarily to take away such projects which are there all across the country. And we have been working with the Ministry of Finance to see where the progress is. They have initiated the process. They were taking time to put their system in process. Now they are looking at to invite potential managers and fund managers, where they will invest 49% out of this 20,000 crore in the funds. And they are looking for investors to come in with the balance. If that happens, there will be a lot of work and the pain can be reduced. The sale of these assets can happen by many of the contractors. The second is the bond issues. So basically the fund which is there, they are targeting to support 1.5 trillion rupees of infrastructure projects. It's just not this 20,000 crores. With this 20,000 crore, they are looking at how they can expand it and make it over a trillion, 1.5 trillion rupee worth of projects they can support. And that can happen through multiplying, getting investors as participants and co-partners with this fund. And I think that will be one of the biggest driver. If that happens, which we are hoping in the next couple of months, we should start to see the success of that. Parts are there. One is the existing projects which are stuck into problems and people want to exit. And second is new way of getting public-private partnership. In the new way, one thing is very clear, the first key driver has to be paid jobs, EPC contracts, and because you need to build up capacity in the country. The government has worked out the annuity hybrid projects. I think from our perspective, the way we see it is that the best way to build up the strength of a public and private partnership, when you have the government one side and the private can execute the project well in time and in a best possible cost manner. The cost of money is the cheapest which the Government of India can borrow. No one can borrow below the Government of India. So why should we create a model which will have a higher cost? Who will have to pay for it? People have to pay for it. It will impact the toll. So if you are able to be efficient, most efficient through a private partnership who brings in the expertise and the technology part, and the government who brings in the resources part, and that model is what will work. The hybrid has tried to bring in a certain element of that to a certain extent, which will help to my mind. Not maybe a perfect situation, but definitely at this juncture, a model which the government is wanting to test and see how it goes forward. If you resolve arbitration, and if in the next 6-9 months, all the pending arbitration disputes which are there, the amount of money which will flow to the system, which will help in addressing the banking system.
Yeah,
You don't need to bring in capital then. Overall contracting, EPC contracting, because you see the construction industry in the country is basically what we are talking about, which gets jobs and projects from various authorities, center, state, various departments, and that is where the disputes happen. And arbitration goes on for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and it keeps on going up to appeal right up to the Supreme Court. And the government keeps on appealing on that. So that process, hopefully with this act, is getting addressed. The second, of course, is environment issues and the land acquisition issue. Land bill, of course, as you know, could not get passed in the previous session. The government is now looking at different ways to handle that. It is a concern, more particularly for infrastructure projects. And I think it is important to give that mandate to the government, whether it is the state or the center, that if wherever infra is required, for private sector you may have a regulation on the one side, but wherever infrastructure is required and it is essential, within the various certain norms and process, you have to do for the good of the people, because we have to learn to remember that we have to sacrifice partly today for a better future tomorrow for our generations to come. We cannot say that we will be in comfort today and tomorrow we will allow our generation's future to suffer. So we owe a responsibility to send a message that we need to build certain things for the future of the country.